A small message from me before we kick off with today's video. iDRIVEACLASSIC is proud to be sponsored and insured by Adrian Flux. If you haven't heard of Adrian Flux before, they're the UK's leading specialist motor insurance broker, covering everything from classic and vintage cars right through to heavily modified sports cars. So whether you're in a Morris Marina, a 90s retro runabout, or something with a bit more oomph under the bonnet, give them a call for your next policy. I've popped a link to their site in the description box below. Hi guys, it's Steph from iDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back on this very sunny day introducing you to the newest member of the Ajax family. Her name is Valerie. She was made in 1968 and she's a Triumph 1300 front wheel drive. Now I know that she's not the best example, but I tell you what, she's far from being the worst. And she's somewhere in between, but she was very cheap and it's totally different from what I wanted. I wanted an ADO 16, but I couldn't afford one. So I've bought her, and it's a really bizarre choice because do I know anything about Triumphs? No. Have I worked out how to sort that carburetor out yet? Also no, but here she is. So this is what she's looking like at the start of our project, and coming up over many Tinkering Tuesdays ahead, we're going to transform her from this into something looking a little bit more like she would have left Triumph back in 1968. Right, well, this is Valerie. She's a Triumph 1300 front wheel drive. Many people have called her a Dolomite and a Toledo over the last few weeks, and it's because they simply don't recall one of Triumph's most underrated cars of the 1960s. A lot of people think of sports cars when they think of Triumph, but I'd say that the 1300 front-wheel drive is a brilliant example of what Triumph could achieve, and it's just as important as their TR sports cars that, well, everyone seems to rave about. Now, when the 1300 was first on the drawing board as Project Ajax all the way back in 1962, it was put in place to replace the Herald. But by 1964, the car's market positioning was revised, and the team decided it was better placed to perform, well, in its own space, and they saw it as a scaled-down 2000 for the buyer who wanted a smaller saloon, and in fact they were very popular with women. Now, whilst the car brought a lot of newness and was Triumph's first front-wheel drive, and it was the first car to have the all-systems go wheel in the centre of the dash, which I will show you later, it was the same engine as the Herald 1360. However, the engine was placed on top of the gearbox and the drive was sent to the front wheels. The styling of the car, of course, is the work of Michelotti, who is of course very well known for his work with Triumph. And the car was really highly rated at the time by snippy automobile journalists. In fact, it was dubbed the best small car available by Autocar magazine. For context, the 1300 launched into a decade of ADO 16s and minis, with the ADO 16 across all badge variants being the best seller of the decade and dominated sales charts from one year to the next. So when you think about it in that context, taking the title of Best Small Car was no mean feat in the swinging yet all too conservative decade. The 1300 was set to top 85 miles per hour, if you're brave, and with plush carpets, wood trim, and a dash which was far more advanced than many of its counterparts. It's easy to see then why it garnered such praise, and in fact everyone I've spoken to about this car and buying it has only had good things to say. However, on that speed front, my experience so far, I haven't taken the car really above kind of 65, 68 miles per hour, and if I'm honest, I don't think I want to either, because once it gets to that point, the noise inside the cabin is, well, if I'm being polite, unpleasant, and I certainly wouldn't want to push the car and go any faster. Now, the car without any additional extras came in at £835 with tax, which was pretty pricey at the time. But remember, it packed a lot inside the car, including over 80 seating positions available. And this was because the steering column moved and the seat moved. However, on my one, it's pretty firmly stuck in place, so I'm not going to be able to demo it for you today. So realistically, this was a car which was far more ambitiously upmarket and futuristic than many others within the sector. The car was advertised with a 320-mile radius within a tank, but my experience would say that this is the lower end of average. I'm getting around at the moment what I believe to be around 200 miles out of half a tank. I am, however, using posh petrol, I'm not using the cheap stuff. Now the seats, as you can see here, are supposed to be full flow ventilation, but I've already burnt the backs of my legs this week as they stuck to the seats, which were hotter than the sun, because this black vinyl is deadly. So this is absolute utter nonsense, and trust me, any ventilation is barely noticed. Now, whilst my biggest bugbear is that notchy gearbox, which I'll talk around on drive-through, it does have synchro on all gears and independent suspension on all four wheels. It's also got discs to front and drums to back, which means that although the ride is pleasant, it's not as refined as some of those early 70s cars like your Allegro, where things ride a little bit smoother on hydrogas. But for the mid-60s, as you'll see, it's not too bad. So this is my snapshot of the Triumph 1300. Because of course we're going to be investigating this car over forthcoming Tinkering Tuesdays, today it's just a bit of a whistle-stop tour around the car, and we'll go into far more depth as we discover it over the coming weeks ahead. So now I'm going to show you the dash and talk you through some of that, including that all systems go wheel, because for me this is probably one of the most interesting cars I've not only owned but tested. Before we head off, I wanted to show you this really interesting safety feature. These are the window winders. Now they're recessed into the door because it was seen as a safety feature at the time. You think it looks fiddly now? They thought it looked fiddly then too, and it wasn't very highly rated by reviewers. Now it's funny because I know that a lot of you will have spotted those bad points on the car when we were walking round. Things like that frilly back arch that's a little bit iffy. Side note is I've actually managed to get a new old stock panel for that, so that'll be gone soon. That front wing, also a little bit tragic looking. I'm going to sort all that out. Seems to be a lot more straightforward than the Marina is. PS, if anyone has got a Marina driver front wing, please do email me because I am desperate for one. Now, let me talk you through this dash because I was really on the fence. I loved her straight away when I saw her. I thought, oh my God. And then I started looking round. I saw that back arch. I saw that tragic front wing. And I thought, is it too much? And I'd taken a friend with me to look at the car, as you always should do. However, I took a friend who was ridiculous as myself. So that's Cameron from Not Another White Box. You might have seen his YouTube channel. He always wears very tight trousers and walks you around vintage caravans, but his channel's really funny and you should watch it. And I said, what do you think? And Cameron is such an enabler, and he said, yeah, do it. And I said, no, I think we need to be sensible. And he said, why don't you get inside, take her for a drive and see what you think? So I was on the fence and then opened the door. And by the way, those doors shut beautifully, as you can see there. And I immediately fell in love, and that was the thing that did it for me. So I hope that for those of you that are a bit turned off by the outside, you're enchanted by the inside as much as I was. In the middle, we've got our heater controls there. Top left, that controls your heater fan. Bottom left, that's your ceiling light, which is up there. Honestly, flip that on at night. It's like Vegas. It's so light in here, and I love it. And then coming over to the right hand side, we've got our light switch. Now I'm going to talk to you about that when we talk about the stalk, because it's the weirdest thing I have ever bought into with a car and just accepted it as normal. Coming down from there, we've got a little twirly dial thing. That is controlling how bright the backlight is for these dials. Coming down, you can see this weird pod that someone has after fitted. Is it attached? No. I don't really understand what's going on with it, but it's a great way to prop up my phone when I'm driving, so it's going to stay for now. Coming into the middle, this is where it won me over. So let me talk to you about my favourite thing on this, which is the all systems go in the middle. And it's a selection of warning lights. It's a great feature. Indicators are on there, although they're dead dull. So during the day, when your indicators are on, because they don't automatically self-cancel, you don't always see it. You've got your beam light on there. You've got ignition, fuel warning light. I've got the choke, as I've talked about there, and the handbrake light. Again, I haven't managed to get that handbrake light to work, so I guess that's a future Tinkering Tuesdays right there. Coming over to our left, we have got the choke, which I pulled out the other day, but I've now fixed. Hurrah! The key, the speedo, and luxury, I've got a trip clock. What is this magic? On the right hand side, the dial is split into 3. So you've got temperature, you've got your amp meter there, fuel gauge there, which doesn't really work. It only registers ever as half. I don't know what's going on. And then you've got your window washer there, which I'm going to talk to you about when I drive, because that is currently a bit iffy. And then down from that there, you have got windscreen washers. Now you'll be able to see there's a metal bracket that someone's put in, and you'll think, that doesn't look very Triumph. That's because it's not very Triumph. And in fact, what's happened is, at some point, is that someone's obviously tried to do something or take it off, and it's got cracked, and they've put in that metal bracket. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Now, for those of you that have seen a Triumph 1300 before, you'll be like, what's that little clock doing? The little clock that I thought wasn't working at first is actually a little wind-up clock, so that's quite nice. And it tells the time, and it works. It's one of the only things that does work properly on this car, and I absolutely love it. Now, coming down to the horn, which is here, guess what broke on my drive here? I'm so pleased. But when that is fixed, I am going to show you, although the horn is very disappointing, so I'm probably going to put another one on. Now this is where it gets a little bit weird, is these lights. So as you can see here, we've got this stalk, but to get these lights to work, you have to turn it on here, and then you move your way through. Now, I don't know what you think at home, but wouldn't you have thought it would have gone side, main, and then high beam? But do you know what it actually does? It goes side, high beam, main. So I'm forever like this when I'm driving, all the way through it, but I will get used to it. And then on the right hand side, completely usual, are your indicators. Now, one of the things you will have noticed is we've got these rather attractive ashtrays at either end of the dash. But let me show you what they're good for. So it's a rite of passage with every car that joins the IDRIVE fleet, is we take it through the Huddersfield drive-through. And what we found out was when you flip this down, it fits the dip. So tragic. But I'll tell you what, that was really handy, and you can also balance a can of Coke on there as well, so it's been absolutely brilliant. Anyway, I'm getting very giddy about this car, as you can probably tell. I've had it a few weeks now, and I truly love it. Like, it's so good. So Jill's going, and this is filling the spot, and I love it so much more than I ever loved Jill. And I mean that probably sounds a little bit disloyal, but it's taken me by surprise as much as it's probably taken everybody else by surprise, and I'm determined to learn everything on it, to get everything right, and to take you on an adventure in it, because I think it's a perfect project car. It's not too badly off where I need it to be, and it's drivable at the same time whilst I get everything sorted out. So I guess what we're going to do next is get her started up, let you listen to what she sounds like. PS, the exhaust is a bit loose, it sounds a bit rattly, but it's absolutely fine once we get going. So again, another future Tinkering Tuesday. So let me start her up and you can hear what she sounds like. Yeah, it's not bad, is it? Now let's have a listen from the back. It is a little bit rattly at the moment with that exhaust, but have a listen anyway. And with that, we're up into fourth gear, and in fact it's very easy to get up into fourth gear in this car. You usually hit it around about 30 miles an hour. Now I wanted to talk to you about what I do like and what I don't like about the car. Things that I do like, as you can see as we come around this corner, the handling is absolutely smashing for a car of this era. I'm barely moving that steering wheel, and it just feels like a much more modern driving experience than many of the other 60s cars I've taken out. Plus, with all those warning lights, I'm prepared for every eventuality apparently. And it's quite quiet inside, so you may not be able to hear, so there's no additional sound deadening that's been added in, nothing's been modified, and it's still relatively quiet compared to a lot of stuff from the era. I'd say it's quieter than an ADO 16, although the engine is a little bit, I don't know, I don't think it's got as much get up and go as an A series, although that could be down to the fact it does need a bit of a once over, that carb needs looking at. So maybe we'll revisit that point actually when we've had a good look at that engine. But yeah, so that's kind of my thing that I really love about it. Oh, an owl! That was exciting. Wonder if any of you at home saw the owl. Anyway, going back to the point, it's remarkably lovely to drive in a way that I just didn't expect from a 60s car. It's very up together because of course it's only done 42k from new, which I do believe to be correct. I don't have all the mileage, but you know when you get in a car and when you've driven a lot of cars, you know whether a car feels accurate to the mileage or not. This does, it feels very up together. Things that I don't like about it are the turning circle is equivalent to that of the Titanic. It's absolutely horrendous, which means that when you're trying to do turns in the road or you're trying to turn round, because I live in a cul-de-sac, it is absolute hell on earth if anyone's parked in a weird position. The boot space is absolutely rubbish, but a bit spoilt with that Marina. It's really not a motorway car. It's really loud on the motorways in a way that the Marina just isn't. So this really won't be doing the motorway miles that the Marina's done. In fact, this will probably be more special occasions, around town, maybe the commute, because I don't actually hit any motorways. So that'll probably be what this car does, whereas the Marina will be doing those long journeys down south, it will be doing the motorway miles. So really this will be living a bit of a more refined life than the Marina. Another thing that I don't like is that notchy gearbox. Now I did wonder if that was something that was a bit of a characteristic of the car, or there was something wrong with this box. So like a top Sadact, I went back and I read the reviews of the car from when it was new, and I thought, what did other people think? So I was reading all sorts, and that gearbox was something that other people had commented on, so I thought, it's not just me then. But yeah, now my moans aside, I do really, really like it. It's very different for me. It's something that I'm not entirely used to, but I absolutely adore it. It's such a jolly little car. I love spotting her in the car park. She feels a lot more up together to drive than anything else I own. And that's not to say that she's a better car, it's more just in terms of the quality. And I've never really owned a car that people haven't pointed and laughed at. So for me, that's been quite a novelty. And I'm just really enjoying her. So every Tuesday, you'll be getting to join me and Valerie, and we're going to go through everything. Or is it Valerie and I? We're going to be going through all the problems. We're going to be sorting things. Things like these wood tops, going to get all that sorted as well. And yeah, there's a lot to come, and I'm very excited to share her with you, and hopefully she'll bring you as much joy as she is bringing me. So that's it from me today. As you can see, the sun is setting, it's time I headed home. So wherever you are in the world, take care and drive safely.